Good evening. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Thank you. Lovely to be here with you. And good evening from Ashdod and Emuna Beams in the Lighthouse in Miami. And this is what the virtual world lets us be together. One of the advantages of COVID-19, what we say that everything is for the best because of all this brought about our shiur, and Baruch Hashem, we're already in our third month, beginning our third month tonight. And thank you to Michael, and thank you to Vivian, and thank you to all the Lighthouse staff, and thanks to all our wonderful friends. It's so good to see every week, Baruch Hashem. Tonight, we're going to speak about a subject that's good for each one of us, and it's good to weather the times, because in times, these are certainly stressful times, and it's a challenge to have a smile on your face, especially now what's going on in Israel. And I read that it's in Texas and Florida also. After, there was a calm before the storm. Now, is there a resurgence of COVID? Today was a record-setting, last 24 hours was a record-setting amount of newly sick people. And the government's trying to do everything to avoid lockdown, but what they've selectively put parts of Israel in lockdown, and Ashdod is included because it's really difficult here. And last day, something like 150 people sick is very difficult. Oh Hashem. But we're going to talk about some of the spiritual roots of this. And today's lesson is entitled Window of the Soul. Actually, we have two windows of the soul. Our Chazal, our sages teach us that the windows of the soul are the eyes. Okay, that these are the eyes reflect. And you can see they were two ways. You can see in a window and you can see out of a window. How do you see? You could look into a person's soul. Yes, you can very much look into a person's soul. Sometimes when you see someone that you don't know and you have instant affinity for that person, you say objectively, what is it about that person? It's not particularly remarkable. Maybe it's not my particular cup of tea, like they say in UK, but it's not, why do I like this person so much? Or it could be the exact opposite. Why is this person aversive to me? I just, don't have chemistry with this particular individual. It's probably because of what's reflecting from the soul. The soul can reflect light and it can reflect darkness. The soul is like it's a funny soul, it acts like a solar reactor. You have a solar reactor in Israel, much of our power all in the summer is solar reactors because the sun is so strong here. We have all year long, we have hot water from the sun. And on sunny days, the only time we turn on electricity for the hot water heater is when there's a couple of days cloudy, a couple of days rain in the winter, but usually all year long. So what works the same way? When the soul, but like in a solar heater, if the solar heater is soiled and it's dirty, for example, they have every 50 days, it's called a khamsin. Khamsin in Arabic means 50. Every 50 days, every 7 weeks, blows off the desert from the direction of Saudi Arabia to the southeast of us, this wind, and this wind that blows, it's the opposite of the prevailing winds. The prevailing winds come from the Mediterranean, from the west, and go easterly. Well, this wind goes east and then goes out to the west, and it brings a big dry thing. We're expecting one tomorrow, that the temperatures really go up. It becomes like the Sahara here. It becomes like the Arabian desert, really gonna be hot. And what happens is you almost have to close the windows of the house. You have to go completely air conditioning even without the heat, because the whole atmosphere is filled with a thin yellow film. The sky looks yellow because it's full of sand. This wind brings the sand off the Arabian desert and brings it to Israel. And you see in your living room, everywhere, everything is full of sand. If your bookshelf, your bookcase, everything is full of sand. So this is what happens. If your eyes, something like that, but your eyes, it's dangerous to go outside. You have to wear glasses or something because the sand gets in your eyes and it's really abusive and it's abrasive for the eyes. The same thing is when things come into our eyes that are not good for the soul. They're abrasive to the eyes and they make it dirty. So what happens in a khamsin? We have to go up on the roof and go to the solar reflectors. They're full of sand and they're full of, they get really mucky. with the condensation at night, the sand turns into mud. And when there's mud on the reflectors, it doesn't heat well because they don't the sun. So we have to clean the reflectors and keep those reflectors clean. The same thing is with the eyes. It's the window of the soul. We have to keep the eyes clean so that they reflect in the soul. And when I talk about guarding the eyes, guarding eyes is only 25% of it. But when we talk about guarding the eyes, I know here comes Lazer with the prudish stuff. No, this is not prudish stuff. This is health of the soul. We're talking about tonight health of the soul. And just like if you go to Dr. David Dome and he check your eyes and he'd say, listen, you have to take care of the health of your eyes. Well, we're talking about the spiritual health in the eyes because there's two aspects for eyesight. And this is something they didn't teach in university, David, but this is two aspects. There's physical sight and there's spiritual sight. I know, David knows all about the physical sight. This you can check your physical sight and tell you exactly what you need, what kind of glasses, and prescribe anything for you. Okay, but as far as spiritual, then you come to David's friend Lazer, and then we say what's wrong with the spiritual eyes. Okay, so looking at spiritual eyes. So one thing we see that there are, and this is what we mean. We say eyes of Emuna, because if the eyes are not spiritually healthy, they can't see Emuna. Now we can understand the media, the anti or the non-Emuna media, given the benefit of the doubt, okay, especially in Israel, when they see everything through eyes of physical. This is what's happening. Let's go with the COVID. This is today, and they're saying there's a new type. Today, all the headlines in Israel is that the swine flu that's been rediscovered in China, and it's a G4, and it's a strain from the swine flu from 2009. And when that's going to come back, and that's going to be the next pandemic in line. It's like a baseball game. They're standing once on the line deck, ready to come to bat. Okay, who's the next pandemic coming to bat? And they see all that, but they don't look at it through spiritual eyes. And the same thing with the Israeli government. All physical eyes. And physical eyes, and this was all the parties. Not bad, all the parties, excuse me, but all the parties that look at everything, physical eyes are to expect from certain parties that they plan to represent the Torah, look through spiritual eyes. No, physical eyes also. If we see why the resurgence in Israel, why all of a sudden this week, such a resurgence, this and that, what was planned for Israel all this week? The government prides itself. Look in Tel Aviv and gay tourism. And you'll come up, Tel Aviv is one of the top 3 cities in the world most popular for gay tourism. And the Israeli official tourism ministry, they take pride in this. And they attract this gay tourism. So this week, that the tourism, usually this week they make a lot of money. How do they make a lot of money? Because they have the Pride Week and the Pride Parades. This week is Pride Week and the Pride Parades. Hashem says no. We had enough of that. We're too close to Mashiach now. There will be no parade. Okay, they thought maybe they could bring back the gatherings, this, and then there's a lot of lobbying. No, there will be no pride. Okay, so what does Hashem do? Brings back a new wave. That's all. Very simple. Very simple. And it's for someone that looks at the world through spiritual eyes. Okay, because the new government came in, Tel Aviv says, okay, we're going to go back. Tel Aviv said before there was a government, we planned, we're going to make public transportation on Shabbat. And now, we're gonna implement it. Hashem says, no, not in my country. This is Hashem's country. Okay, so another reason to come back. You have to think, there's a story in the Gemara about Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, and it was a poisonous snake that was attacking all kinds of people. Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, he put his foot on the snake pit, on a hole, and the snake came up, and it bit Rabbi Hanina's foot, and the snake died. So Rabbi Hanina picked up the snake, and he came back into the shul, to the base of Midrash, and he says, you should see, snakes don't make people die. It's transgressions make people die. Okay, so the Gemara says, oy vavoy for a person that encounters a poisonous snake, and oy vavoy for a poisonous snake that encounters Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. Right up our Gemara. So you have to think, Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, he had such spiritual eyes. This is what we learned. Okay, Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa was the tzaddik of the generation of Tanaim. He was a tzaddik and a generation of time in base of Migdash. The stories about Rabbi Badosa. But it shows us what we're going to try to do. So we say, "Matai magia ma'asai le'maseh avotai." When will my deeds come to the deeds of my fathers? So we see we can attain it. And this is not children's stories. We could see people in this generation. In Israel, it's after sundown. In the UK, it's right before sundown. In America, it's in the afternoon. Today, the 9th of Tammuz, is the yortzeit of the Kloisenberger Rebbe. Rabbi Yekusiel ben Yudah ben Rebbe Tzvi Hirsch. The Kloisenberger Rebbe is one of my biggest heroes in it all, and especially in Judaism. Okay, the biggest hero. The Kloisenberger Rebbe, to tell you about the Kloisenberger Rebbe, this is the Holocaust deniers. Kloisenberger Rebbe was in Auschwitz. The Kloisenberger Rebbe was in the worst labor camps. The Kloisenberger Rebbe in the Holocaust was a young man with a young wife and 11 children. He got married when he was young, like Hasidic dude. He married his second cousin. His second cousin was from the Satmar dynasty, from the Teitelbaum family. And that was his wife. They had 11 children. The Kloisenberger Rebbe in the Holocaust lost his beloved wife and 10 of the 11 children. The last child made it alive. He died from a disease right after the Holocaust. He was very, very sick. He wasn't killed inside the Holocaust, but he came out very weak and very sick, and he died right after the Holocaust. You could call that a Holocaust death. So the Kloisenberger Rebbe lost an entire family, a wife, and 11 children. The Kloisenberger Rebbe went through Auschwitz, and a famous story of his eyes of Emuna, his spiritual windows, perfect. He could see far. He how did he avoid shaving? How did he avoid shaving? He would cry every day. All day he would do Hitbodedut. All day he would do personal prayer to Hashem. He would pray to Hashem all day long, and he'd cry all day long. And he wrapped his beard in a kerchief, like you used to have a toothache in the old time. They wrapped their kerchief around their head. And the Nazi said, what is this? He says, he's got a toothache. He wrapped himself, and that's how he avoided shaving. He did not eat anything unkosher. He was near starvation several times. There's a lot to talk about the Kloisenberger Rebbe. Okay, a lot to talk about the Kloisenberger Rebbe. And it's right now, there's still time. If you need a big salvation, ask Hashem what you want, and they say, and by merit of the Kloisenberger Rebbe, and light a candle for the Kloisenberger Rebbe. Rabbi Kusiel Yehuda ben Tzvi Hirsch. Even if you're in Israel, that the yortzeit usually catches 72 hours before and 72 hours after, but since still the time it's right coming off the yortzeit, you can still light a candle in Israel too. All right, that's the Kloisenberger Rebbe. The Kloisenberger Rebbe, when he was in Auschwitz in the end, and it was already revealed that he was a Rebbe, one of the high Nazi officers, he said, Rabbiner, get in the Jeep. So he got in the Jeep with the high Nazi officer, and he said, how do you think you existed this whole time? And he says, my Emuna in Hashem, my trust in Hashem. He says, I'll show you what your trust in Hashem is. He took out a Luger, a 45 caliber Luger, and put it to the Kloisenberger Rebbe's temple. And he says, what can your Hashem do to avoid me pulling this trigger and putting that bullet right through your skull? And he says, if Hashem wants to take my life, Hashem wants to take my physical body, there's many ways he could do it. Okay. And if he doesn't want to, then you could do all you want. And he says, they came back, and when they came back into the camp, he said, so the Nazi felt, he felt nervous. He put his gun back in the holster. They came back to the camp, and when they came back into the camp, the Americans were the entrance to the camp. And the Kloisenberger Rebbe said to him, he said, you see, and then he was right away taken captive by the Americans. The stories about the Kloisenberger Rebbe are unbelievable. What was with Kloisenberger Rebbe? The Kloisenberger Rebbe did not see anything physical. He saw what is Hashem doing in the world. He lived his life with Hashem. This was a Kloisenberger Rebbe. So imagine, it was the Satmar Rav, who was Satmar Rav and Kloisenberger Rebbe were cousins. The Satmar Rav said that anybody that came out of the Holocaust with a kippah on their head, you can give them a kvittel. In other words, you can give them a wish list. That they have the power, even a little, somebody's apparently someone small that came out of the Holocaust, that they did perfect tzaddik. There's a story about the Pittsburgher Rebbe's father, Rabbi Avram Abba, of blessed and saintly memory, the Pittsburgher Rebbe Shlita. He lives less than a mile down the road from me. Okay, the Pittsburgher Rebbe's father was in the Holocaust, and he came to Ashdod, and he's the one that founded the Pittsburgher community. In fact, he was instrumental in founding the religious community in Ashdod. And it was 1973, and it was really hot. And Ashdod was a young town there. There was no air conditioning. No one heard of air conditioning back then. And in Israel, 1973, there was fans. And the way you air condition is you put a wet sheet in the door. I remember when I was in the army, we would put a wet sheet in the entrance to the tent, and the wind would blow it through it, and that would cool us down. That was our air conditioning. Okay, if you had a fan, I mean, if you're a rich person in Israel back then, after Yom Kippur War, then you had a fan. Well, the Pittsburgher Rebbe was not a healthy man toward the end of his life, and rich guy, neighborhood, he says, Rebbe, I'll tell you what, if you promise me that I will be next to you in Gan Eden, then I will build you air-conditioned air-conditioned shul with mikveh, with everything, not something I've heard of. Back then, he was willing to give the Rebbe $3 million. The Rebbe said to him, that's very generous of you, but I can't accept the offer. He said, what do you mean, Rebbe? How can you turn down the offer? All you do promise that I'll be next to you. Arrange me a little seat next to you in Gan Eden, that's all. He says, I'm a well-to-do businessman, but I'm certainly not a tzaddik, and I've done plenty of stuff wrong. Rebbe said, I would do it, but if you gave me $100 million, you cannot be next to me. Rebbe said, why? He says, where are you from? And he says he's from Asiatic Russia, okay, Eastern Russia, or Uzbekistan, that area. He said, you were not in the Holocaust, right? He says, no, I was in Uzbekistan. So Pittsburgher Rebbe said to him, there is a special place in Gan Eden for people that went through the Holocaust. And that's about Holocaust survivors. If you meet a Holocaust survivor, and especially a Holocaust survivor that believes in Hashem, that this is something unbelievable. So what about the Kloisenberger Rebbe? After losing a wife and 11 children, imagine how many people in a situation like that would be totally out with PTSD, and it finished there. They've got post-trauma syndrome. Forget about it. They can't get. Kloisenberger Rebbe came to the land of Israel. The Kloisenberger Rebbe founded Kiryat Sanz in Netanya. He built a hospital. He built a yeshiva. He built an orphanage. He remarried it and had 7 children. The Sanzer Rebbe in Netanya and the Kloisenberger Rebbe in New York are 2 of his sons. Okay, this is the Kloisenberger Rebbe. He started all over again. His belief, Hashem wanted this, Hashem gives, Hashem takes away. And this is the Kloisenberger Rebbe. This, to me, is the biggest heroic story. At the end of Rebbe, Rambo with the biceps and this and that. This is a spiritual Rambo. And just like spiritual Rambo, you get the bicep strong hands. The Arizal talks about it. Okay, you see somebody that's got muscles in their body. What does it mean when you have spiritual eyes? We say, once again, we're talking about the spiritual anatomy. The Arizal talks about it. Rabbi Nachman writes about it. Open up Likutei Moran, the first part of Likutei Moran in Torah 91, Sadik Aleph. Rabbi Nachman quotes the Arizal, and he says there is such a thing as bringing Emuna into your hands, having hands of Emuna. How do you have hands of Emuna? Rabbi Nachman says, if you know what we do, in a Hasidic custom, and many B'nai Torah, Lithuanians do also, because of the Shulchan Aruch, before we wash our hands for breaking bread, for saying Hamotzi, we raise our hands. The right hand is a little bit higher than the left hand, and we say, Su yadechem kodesh, carry your hands in holiness, and I carry my palms toward your mitzvahs, that I love to do your mitzvahs, and I shall speak all the time of your laws. So the Arizal says, Rabbi Nachman quotes, it says that when you do this, if you say this pasuk of Suyadechem Kodesh, before you say Hamotzi, before you say Al Natilat Yadayim, prior to Hamotzi, you say this pasuk, and you raise your hands, you uplift your hands before you dry them, you wash your hands before eating bread, okay? Then you raise your hands, you say the Suyadechem Kodesh, then you say the blessing, then you dry the hands, then you make the Hamotzi. It's all in the order in Shulchan Aruch. The Arizal says by raising one's hands to Hashem after that blessing, the hands receive emunah. The hands receive emunah. Just the hands receive emunah. There are ways that every part of the body receives emunah. This is what King David says when it's a pasuk that we say in Nishmas. Okay, very important prayer, Nishmas, that we say Shabbat in the morning. And if you need a miracle, say it every day. No such thing as people that say Nishmas Kol Chai prayer. It's just thanking and praising Hashem, and they don't see big miracles. All right, that's it. Okay, so in Nishmas prayer, we say, Kol atzmosai tomalna Hashem mikamocha. All my bones shall yell out, Hashem, there was no one like you. How can my bones yell out? My bones can yell out is when I've succeeded in bringing Emuna to every one of my limbs. If I can succeed bringing Emuna, then my limbs, they yell out, oh, Hashem. So you can bring Emuna into your hands, you bring Emuna into your feet, you can bring Emuna into your legs, bring Emuna into your neck, bring every part of your body. Because as the Sefer Haredim teaches us, Rabbi Lazer Brody is the one that wrote Yedid Nefesh. He was a Talmud, a student of the Arizal. Just as we have 613 mitzvahs, we have 613 parts of the body, okay? Avraham that's the Gematria 248. Abraham, after he did Milah, Hashem added the Hey to his name. Now, we have 248 limbs in the body. They correspond to the 248 positive mitzvahs. We have 365 tendons in the body that correspond to the 365 negative mitzvahs, that each mitzvah of these 613 mitzvahs corresponds to a part of the body. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we'll go further. So the thing is, the Kloisenberger Rebbe, he had emunah in all of his body, and that's why his soul and his emunah overrid his logic. They outruled his logic. Okay, logic says this is terrible. This is worst case scenario. This is nothing worse happened to you in history. Okay, that maybe the Holocaust, maybe the Inquisition competes with the Holocaust. I was around for the Inquisition. Maybe in the Shah's time in 1648, there was a pogroms in 1648 that murdered a third of European Jewry. It could be, but we're talking about one of the big five catastrophes in Judaism. All right, so somebody went through that, crazy PTSD. Even Kloisenberger Rebbe, how do you come out? How do you lose a wife and 11 children and come out and raise another family and build a city and build an orphanage and build a community and lead a community and become the world's greatest spiritual leader? How do you do that? How do you do that? This is only if the complete emunah, complete emunah. And so this is the hero of Judaism. Today's his yard site. So if you need something special, light a candle for Kloisenberger Rebbe. All right, so how do we get emunah into our eyes? This is so important. What happens, the benefit of bringing emunah into our eyes is we see things completely different. All right, now why am I speaking about this particularly this time? Okay, I talked about extreme, it's from Shemayim, today's lesson. I didn't plan it that way. I didn't think of the Kloisenberger Rebbe's yard site. But when I see that it landed right on the Kloisenberger Rebbe, that's exactly what his life exemplified for us. Okay, now, cherished brothers and sisters, I have the privilege of being close to a lot of you. And many of you know personally, and it's a privilege. And the ones I don't know, I'd be happy to get to know you. Okay, but I know we've got problems in Parnassa, and I ask Hashem, beg Hashem, that everybody gets just as much money as they need exactly when they need it. Amen. We have problems with health. Today, I dealt with a new health problem. I got an urgent letter from the urgent email from the United States. that a lovely 18-year-old girl is suddenly having mysterious pains. Don't say where they were, but mysterious pains. And they just checked her this week. They checked her this week for COVID-19. She came out negative. And the parents are baffled. The doctors are baffled. Everything's negative. Her blood work is negative. They get negative. It's all negative. They see there's so much peripheral stress going around for young people. And even if you don't have COVID, chas v'sholom, and B'ezrat Hashem, then anybody listening to our Emuna lesson, Hashem, look, everybody's coming, we're getting stronger together in Emuna, okay? And we're trying to understand, to get closer to Hashem. We are actively trying to get closer to Hashem. This is the whole message. This is the whole message. The whole world right now should be in tshuva and try to learn Emuna and get close to Hashem. And you can't understand just for us learning together. Cherished brothers and sisters, this is an insurance policy for you and your family. And this is not an advertisement for the sure, but this is just fact. It's just fact. Because why is Hashem doing it? He wants people to say, what's going on here? What's going on in the world? How come every time they say there's a new cure, it turns out it doesn't work. And everything, they think there's a cure, now there's a thing with the new virus on the way. People don't understand because they don't have spiritual eyes. So now what's happening, and this is what the young lady that was feeling bad, I told the parents, I said, I'm positive, know your family, know your daughter, I'm positive that it's stress, it's fear, it's stress and fear. So it gave her what to do, spiritual, didn't have anything to do with medicine, only spiritual thing, okay? Gave her a few things to do, one of which was to light a candle for the Kloisenberger Rebbe, another which was to say Nishmas, and another thing to check a certain mitzvah that she might be lax on to strengthen that particular mitzvah. And B'ezrat Hashem, by nightfall, I am sure that young lady's going to feel completely good. Because this is what Hashem wants from her. This is what Hashem wants from her. Okay, she's got this fear. Why do we have fear? Why do we have stress? Why do we have negative emotions? The negative emotions, they come from Hashem. Don't blame yourself. Oh, my Emuna is too weak. No, don't do that. Don't go that way. Don't go that way. Don't blame yourself. Don't persecute yourself. The negative emotions are saying, Hashem, my son, my daughter, got to strengthen Emuna. Let's put the spiritual eyesight. Okay, let's put aside the physical glasses. Okay, it's not a matter of 20/20 or 6/6 or whatever numbers you use, wherever you live. Okay, put aside the glasses and let's put on our spiritual glasses. Let's put on our Emuna glasses. The first thing, this is the first step in overcoming stress. How do I overcome stress? I cannot overcome stress if I rely on intellect and logic, because logic says this is a terrible situation. That's what it says. I'm Kloisenberger Rebbe. You are now Rebbe. You are in concentration camp. Okay. Not many people are come out alive here. All right. You are in a terrible situation. Rebbe, you lost a wife and 11 kids. Now what? Now how do you begin life with a scar like that? How do you do that? He did not listen to intellect, did not listen to logic. He says, all I know is 3 words. Ein od milvado. There's nothing but Hashem. Nothing but Hashem. In a Kloisenberger Rebbe's life, there was nothing but Hashem. Nothing but Hashem. Beloved brothers, sisters, you have to know it's easy. We can all learn it. That's why everything I had in my mind, I wrote this little 100-page booklet, 109 pages booklet that did the 3 words of Emuna. And it teaches you the meaning of Ein od milvado. There's no one but Hashem, and what it means for you. Because as soon as I take that, wait a second. And we're standing on 1 foot, we'll do the book. Okay? The book talks about doing 3 things. The book talks about, first of all, internalizing that there's no one but Hashem. I have no one but Hashem. Okay. Second, who is that Hashem we're all talking about? That there's no one but Him. Guess what? You know who Hashem is? That's my loving Father in heaven. Not only is my Father in heaven, He's my loving Father in heaven. And guaranteed, axiomatic, everything He does is an act of love for me personally. And if not just for Lazer, but for David and for Elisheva and for Ephraim and for the whole Denise and for the whole family. for the whole family, for everybody, the whole family. Everything is an act of love for everyone. Okay, for every one of Hashem's beloved sons and daughters. And the Torah says it, sign check, Bonim atem Hashem Elokechem, that you are all beloved sons and daughters of Hashem. So anything Hashem does is an act of love. Oh, wait a second. Okay, so fact number one, there's nothing but Hashem. He alone did, does, and will do everything. That's the first principle of the Rambam. First principle of 13 principles of belief. And it's the first principle, but how many people internalize it? How many people, even, I'm not talking about the people without the kippas with the beard, talking about people with the beard and with the kippas. How many people live that? How many people have a smile on their face in calamity? How many people, you see, they never lose their temper, never, because all they think about is Hashem. It's Kloisenberger Rebbe. Kloisenberger Rebbe. Nothing angered him. Nothing angered him. Nothing scared him. He had no fear of no one in the world. He did not fear a Nazi officer with a Luger at his temple. Did not fear him. Only Hashem. Only Hashem. And when you fear one, you fear no one. That's one-stop shopping. Okay, this is Hashem love. So first of all, I put my logic aside and it's all Hashem. So we said everything comes from Hashem, and the Shem that everything comes from is our loving Father. Therefore, three, everything He does is going to be for the best. All right. So even so, if a child had, now what is this called? This is called in Hebrew das. This is called spiritual awareness. If you want to know spiritual awareness, look at chapter 4 of Old Isaac's Trail to Tranquility. Old Isaac, he had top spiritual. By the way, Old Isaac, part of Old Isaac is a kaleidoscope. Part of Old Isaac is the Kloisenberger Rebbe. Okay, he's a part of Old Isaac. Old Isaac, to give you, Old Isaac is a compendium of all my heroes in Judaism. Okay, and this was the Old Isaac's level of Emuna that you read about. This is level 10 spiritual awareness. This is the level that the Kloisenberger Rebbe attained. Okay, he attained that level. So if you see, if you do, not that I'm trying to sell books, but you'll really enjoy it. You'll really enjoy it. Okay, so there you go. If you look, oh, there you go. Look at David Dome. If you don't have David Dome up, David Dome's got Old Isaac right in the window there. Okay, you can see Bo Hashem. Anyway, yeah. Oh, there you go, David. You know what you deserve. I'm going to send you a poster, printable poster, signed to you personally from Old Isaac. Okay, would you like that? Yeah, Bo Hashem. Okay. Anyway, this was the level of his Emuna. The only way we can safely navigate these waters of stress and anxiety, lack of parnasa, threat to our health. What's going on? And mothers, they don't have a minute to themselves. It's great. The kids are home from school, and there is no school. There's supposed to be summer school because of all the time lost, and they can't get anything done. And it's crazy. It's crazy. How do you get past that? Throw logic aside. Throw intellect aside. I don't understand a thing. I don't know a thing. If I could understand everything that Hashem is doing, then I'd be God. But I'm not God. I can't understand. Imagine in Israel, I think maybe I once told you the story. In Israel, there's a custom that on the 10th wedding anniversary, a husband buys a 10,000 piece puzzle for the wife. Okay, so she puts this puzzle together. Some do batik. And they do batik. Okay, people in the same could use the same batik. You know, the needlework. We do this mural in needlework. Okay, if one of the holes in the needlework was empty, or you only had 9,999 pieces of the puzzle. So at the end, when the puzzle's finished, the wife glues it onto the cardboard, and husband takes it to the frame shop and gets a beautiful frame and hangs it in the living room. Okay, this is the 10th anniversary. This is what it took the wife 3 or 4 months to do it. Okay, and there's a place of honor. That frame in Israel costs a pretty penny. It costs maybe in US dollars something like $657. Phew. You know, wow. You wouldn't invest in a frame like that. You wouldn't invest in a frame like that if you were missing a piece, because it's incomplete. Who wants to hang something incomplete, something blemished on the living room wall or on the dining room wall? No, we wouldn't do it. But yet all the time we make judgments about things. This is no good, this is this is that. We're not lacking one piece of the 10,000 piece puzzle. We're lacking 9,999 pieces of the 10,000 piece puzzle. Hashem knows all the pieces of the puzzle. Hashem doing it. Now, if we had the puzzle, maybe Hashem wants to bring Mashiach. Maybe Hashem is putting people through extreme stress. Okay, in Israel, so it should clean up the land of Israel. And in the UK and Canada and America, that maybe people should start thinking about Aliyah. Oh, and why the anti-Semitism? That also comes from Hashem. That's also for the best. So this scary interview with a young lad, a Jewish boy in London. They got beat up so bad, he's afraid to leave the house. And you would see it's violent anti-Semitism. Violent anti-Semitism. Who believed of it? People, they talk, it's just isolated, this and that. It sounds like the talk in the late 30s. It really does. And it reminds me of what the holy tzaddik, Rabbi Lazer Brody, said before he died. That he said three things that happened. The first two things happened right there. And it said the third. He said, people make plans to come to Israel. And if you can't come to Israel, plan to come to Israel. What's the importance of coming to Israel? People say, well, the Parnosa, what's this, what's that? One of the ways to get spiritual eyes is to either, if you're outside of Israel, you really have to work on Emuna day and night. In Israel, it comes much easier because if we're talking about spiritual eye health, let's talk about spiritual cataracts. Okay, cataracts are blockages like a film that blocks the eye, make a cloudiness, especially when you look in light. Okay, so what happens when you go to cataract operation? That the doctor takes out the natural lens that's got clouded up. Oh, usually people that's older, people are old like me, right? And they put in an artificial lens. An artificial lens is clear, but that doesn't work like the regular eyes. I know I had a cataract operation on one eye, and then after that, got PVDs that get difficult, different things, the floaters, different problems. So I said, the other eye, leave it go. Anyway, it's just you can't avoid Hashem. Can't avoid Hashem. Okay, Lazer, you got to do big tshuva on your eyes too. Do big tshuva on your eyes. See, the doctors can't help you to operation. You still have the cloudiness, but a different type of cloudiness. All right. So Thursday, I remind myself every day, one day, a tshuva every single day, every single day, every single day, every single day. This is what Hashem wants from us. Okay, so maybe I haven't completed my tshuva yet. Hashem doesn't expect us to complete. But the law of tshuva in the Torah says, shuvu ad Hashem Elokecha, that we have the obligation to come back to Hashem. Shuva does not mean penitence. It means to return to Hashem. What's it mean to return to Hashem? To return our spiritual eyes, to take them away from the physical world and return them to the spiritual world, where I see only Hashem. And this is what King David could say in Psalm 16, Shiviti Lashem Negdi Tamid. Shiviti Hashem, I could see all King David saw was the four letters of Hashem's name. King David saw spirituality in the world. King David was so spiritual, he knew the language of the birds. He knew the language of the animals. He knew the language of the trees. That's how he wrote Parak Shira, because he knew every creation. He could hear how the wheat in the field, when the wind blows through it, how they were singing to Hashem. And he wrote the song, what each one sings, Parak Shira. It's really uplifting, something lovely. Okay. This is spiritual eyes that King David, the Kloisenberger Rebbe, this is what Hashem wants from us too. He says, no, that every one of you, my beloved children, you can have those spiritual eyes too. But maybe not become a Moses, but how about starting first and becoming a Hananiah and becoming a David and becoming a Michael? Let's do what you got. Do it. Let's use what you got. You're not fulfilling 20% of your own potential, not 10% of your potential. There's much more we could do. Okay, so let's see how we can improve our spiritual vision and get rid of the spiritual the cataracts, so we could see Hashem better, see the world better through eyes of Emuna. Okay, so just like we said, there are ways of bringing Emuna into our hands, the way bringing Emuna into eyes. There's four things that are connected. Now, it's not by happenstance that I gave the example of the hands from the Arizal, because impure hands affect the spiritual eyes. When a person wakes up in the morning and he doesn't wash his hands, what we call in Yiddish Negelwasser, but Netilat Yadayim, the Netila of the morning Tila, 3 times on each hand, that is to get rid of the spiritual impurity. Sleep is 1/60th of death. The Gemara in Tractate Brahos tells us the sleep is 1/60th of death. So we have, and where does this concentrate itself? Even though it's 1/60th of death, it concentrates itself, especially on the fingertips. So when you wake up in the morning, don't touch your eyes, don't touch your face, don't touch anything until you wash your hands. Now, wash your hands, you're good to go. All right. The second thing, that's first thing, impure hands. Second thing that's terrible for spiritual eyesight, unkosher food. Unkosher food, when a person eats unkosher food, boom, that's cataracts this thick on the eyes. Cannot see Hashem, cannot see anything, and becomes very, very animalistic, especially when the unkosher food is the unkosher food from the mammal type, unkosher meat. And you have to be very, very careful with meat and shechita. I know it. In recent years, and recently I've limited my own meat intake to just to poultry and a little bit of poultry on Shabbat, and the rest is veggies. And I feel my body and my neshama feel much better. It's good. It's lighter. But you have to be very, very careful. If you eat beef, very careful that the shechita is proper, and because it's a difficult spiritually, just as more difficult physically to digest than it is to digest a tomato or a banana. That the banana goes right into your bloodstream. But it's much, much more difficult to digest meat. All right, for the body and the neshama. So be very careful of the kashrus. All right. Now I'll give you a secret. Why in Israel, when we have the new seminars for Bali Tshuvas, that we make them 3 days? Because all we ask them to do, okay, they eat the food we prepare for them. So they can eat 3 days in a row kosher food. And once they eat kosher food for 3 days, their minds are more open to listen to Hashem because their spiritual eyes become open, right? So we said the first thing is impure hands. Impure hands, they bother. And impure hands, a person really gets impure hands when a person touches something that he should not touch. So to the young people, you think we're prudes when we say, I'm Shomer Negia on a date? If a person is not Shomer Negia, or even married people, oh, just for business purpose, I'm going to shake hands with the opposite sex. Hashem stopped that right now with the COVID. Look what Hashem did. Hashem made everybody Shomer Negia. Oh, no, that's it. You want to? Back off. All right, wearing your mask and said, everybody Shomer Negia. Look what Hashem is doing. When you see with spiritual eyes, you say, what Hashem has to do the lengths of, if we were all Shomer Negia, and everybody was Shomer Negia in business and Shomer Negia on a date, there wouldn't be COVID. That's another thing. All these things we can say one by one, the impure hands, you're not supposed to, when you go outside yet, before you come back, you're supposed to wash your hands from COVID. Hashem brought COVID to make us all wash our hands and to worry about our hand hygiene. Look how much we're talking about hand hygiene. It's not a matter of your physical hygiene, the bacteria in your hands. It's not a matter of the antibacterial gel. It's a matter of putting water 3 times. We're talking about spiritual hygiene, purity, washing your hands before you eat, washing your hands when you come out of the bathroom, washing your hands when you touch a part of your body that should be covered. Okay, so the first thing that is good for spiritual vision is maintaining the purity of the hands. The second thing is maintaining the kashrus level food, good kashrus level. The third thing is looking at things we shouldn't. That is a big spiritual cataract. Okay. Again, we can see all these things where people think, pretty, and this. First of all, the Torah says it. And if the Torah says it, the Torah, all the mitzvahs of the Torah are for our spiritual health. Okay. And listen, I'm going to have time for some questions. The fourth thing that improves our spiritual eyesight or murders our spiritual eyesight is jealousy. Because anytime a person is jealous of someone else, when you're jealous of someone else, then that's a lack of Emuna. Because look, with Emuna, we know that Hashem gives this person what they need to do their job in the world, and gives me what I need to do my job in the world. I'm jealous of anybody in the world. Okay, this is one thing. So these are four things: impure hands, unkosher food, looking at forbidden sights, and jealousy. We come back here, we can see that all the mitzvahs of Shmir, Shomer Negiah, Shmir's Negiah, and the mitzvahs guarding our eyes is all to get us closer to Hashem. It's not a matter of prudishness, and it's not a matter of, hellfire and brimstone. It's all for our spiritual wholesomeness. And we could see that all the four factors that affect our spiritual eyesight and able to enter the soul, COVID is forcing us to do that. We know you're not going to do. People are very careful. A lot of people stop eating. The restaurants are always restaurants to go to. Okay, I know a lot of people that they call themselves modern and they eat kosher at home, but they go out to unkosher restaurants. No, Hashem put a stop to that. Okay, Negias, Hashem touching other people, Hashem put a stop to that. Look what Hashem put a stop to. When impure hands, Hashem put a stop to that. Okay, and jealousy. Not many people are jealous of each other with all the unemployment and the sickness going around. You don't see people jealous. Maybe you see a guy with a big car and a lot of money, and he's got COVID-19. Oh, I'll take my lot in life, and he can have his. Okay, we can see what Hashem is doing, and I didn't even think of this now. I did not think of this when I prepared the lesson, but it fits perfect like a glove. Fits perfect like a glove, one by one, one by one, one by one. So let's improve our spiritual eyesight, the windows of the soul, so that we can see. Now, what we began the lesson by saying, when the soul reflects light, when our spiritual eyesight improves and our windows of the soul are clean, we now absorb more divine light. And that's what's called Or Sameach, the light of happiness. The Shiva Or Sameach. That's Or Sameach. The divine light comes in, and when the divine light comes in, it fills up the neshama. The neshama is in the brain, and it reflects back. And that's why you love that person. You don't know why. Because he or she's got divine light reflecting from the person. And when you look at a person, you look at a person's neshama. You're not looking at their body parts. You're not looking at their hairdo. You're not looking at their shaitel. You're not looking at the kippah. Yes, kippah. No, you're looking at the reflection of Hashem's light. And this is when you get a reflection of Hashem's light, this is conducive for doing all the mitzvahs, especially loving your neighbors, yourself. And as important, next week is the 17th of Tammuz. We hope Mashiach comes before then. But if not, then we have the 3 weeks, and we go into that again. And Baruch Hashem. Okay, so Hashem should bless us all with spiritual eyes, and Hashem should bless us all with Mashiach and our rebuilt holy temple speedily in our days. Amen.